While they may look like tech stories, the real thread running through all of these headlines is leadership.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your no-fluff guide to artificial intelligence in higher ed. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing nearly 20 years of edtech and marketing expertise straight to your earbuds. Higher ed leaders are expected to master AI overnight, but let's be real, no one has time to sift through every headline, hot take, or research report. That's why every Monday, I'll break down what actually matters. Fast, clear, and to the point. Want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next team meeting? You're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Higher Ed Pulse. On today's episode, 95% of AI projects fail, workers are pushing back, companies are creating new executive roles, AI is stress testing leadership systems, and the cracks are showing. To help me break it down, I'm joined by Gil Rogers, founder of GR7 Marketing. Gil has built his career around helping education innovators connect with the institutions they serve, always with an eye on how emerging tech impacts student success. Today, he and I are digging into the latest AI headlines from the past couple weeks and the pressure leaders are facing heading into the fall. Gil, welcome back to the Pulse.
Well, thank you for having me. And by those headlines, it sounds like we can just stop right now because it's over. We're not talking about AI anymore. It's done. We're over.
The 1 minute podcast. It's over.
My attention span.
Gil, how was your summer? We have not actually caught up in a hot minute, so let's do it on air. How you doing?
Because I don't podcast from baseball fields, and I was. My son was, if anybody does any type of youth sports, you all know it's a commitment. And we were playing baseball from like March through July.
Oh my gosh.
And then, summer hockey happened and, some Cub Scout events and those sorts of things. So when you're outside, it's hard to podcast. So more kids are back in school. It's a little quiet. So now, here we are. It was good. How about you?
My summer was great. Lots of travel. I went to Europe. I did a New York City trip with some girlfriends. So I really can't complain. I think the last time we caught up about youth sports, though, you were like in the process of getting the funds to build a hockey rink in your town. How's that project going?
I will say that if anybody's ever done anything with real estate development and large scale construction projects with municipalities, it is a slow process.
Slower than higher ed? No.
Yes, slower than higher ed.
We found one?
Two slowest things, government and higher ed, right?
Yeah.
Like those are the two things. But if anybody has $25 million laying around that they want to send my way, I'll put your name on the building. I'll put your name on every locker. I don't care.
What an opportunity.
Right? What an opportunity. I have a investor proposal, all this stuff. But we are well on our way to ensuring we have a solid path forward to get that done. So I'm looking forward to one day having a second or third day job, I guess, of running an ice arena.
That's incredible.
AI can't replace frozen ice.
No,
we have that.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, let's use that to transition us into our topic today. Gil and I have pulled 4 AI news articles. All the links are down in the show notes. These are all from the past 7 to 10 days or so. And what's interesting is the headlines, while they may look like tech stories, the real thread running through all of these headlines is leadership. AI isn't failing because the tools are broken. It's failing or thriving based on leadership choices around integration, trust, structure, and governance. So the first article indicates that there is a crisis of trust. A Workday Hanover survey shows that workers welcome AI as a tool, but 70% reject it in management roles like hiring, pay, or compliance. The lesson here, AI can crunch the numbers, but it can't build trust when it comes to the money going into our bank accounts, and leaders need to protect that human contract. The second article is about the shadow workforce that is emerging. Almost half of US employees are already using AI at work without telling their managers, and they are often even paying for that ChatGPT subscription themselves. That is not a tech problem. This is a governance gap within our businesses. Policy without practice pushes adoption underground. The third article, there is a mirage of progress out there. MIT's Gen AI divide recent study revealed that 95% of AI projects fail to deliver ROI. You have probably seen this headline splashed all over LinkedIn recently. Now, in my opinion, the issue isn't tech capabilities, it's leadership. And it's leadership who maybe got dazzled by hype, but distracted from process and integration. And Gil knows better than anyone else that I love me some process and integration. Finally, the fourth article, it's a scramble for structure. In light of everything else, companies are creating chief AI officer roles to elevate AI strategy to the boardroom, probably help those projects succeed more than 5% of the time. With this new CAIO role, it's signaling seriousness, but it's also raising the question as to whether or not this is actual accountability by these companies or just optics. Now, all four articles taken together, the pattern's unmistakable. We're throwing a lot of money at tools without any trust, strategy, or structure in place. AI stress testing leadership systems, and the cracks are showing, like I said at the top. All right, Gil, we got to dig into this. Let's take each article in turn. We'll start with this article around AI as a boss, right? And workers pushing back. This Workday Hanover survey also pointed out that 82% of organizations are expanding their AI use, 96% if you include those testing it at small scale. But employees, while they like that, 70% of workers are pushing back when AI steps into management roles around pay, hiring, and compliance. What's the leadership lesson here, Gil?
Well, I think part of this is there's this not in my own backyard element of some of this stuff where you have to look at it as if I'm an employee at a company or an institution, I like using the tools, but I don't want the tools used on me, right? And so there has to be somewhere in the middle here with the use of AI in these plans and programs. However, to skip ahead a little bit, it falls into the strategy piece of it, right? And there's going to be a failure if we're just slapping an AI tool into our process because we think it's going to make things better. And then it falls short and fails and becomes part of that MIT study, right? I think at the end of the day, the lesson here right now is that, as you mentioned at the top, AI doesn't replace empathy. It doesn't replace that human interaction element. And people want to use tools to do their jobs, but they want to talk to people about their jobs, right? And so the other element to think of is there's always nuance, right? Like if we just go with straight bands when it comes to performance reviews, when it comes to salary compensations and promotions, et cetera, we miss the nuance, which on some respects, it also means you miss the politics and unfairness elements sometimes when it comes to these types of roles. So that it gets murky a little bit, right? And I think the comfort level of a human interaction with that base in trust, even if you don't fully trust your manager, you can at least look your manager in the eye and have a conversation versus a machine just saying, well, this person qualifies for the next bump in pay because of X, Y, or Z.
So we have seen, though, over the last couple of years that trust grows with exposure. And in fact, this survey identified that as well, that only 36% say they trusted AI at first, but among regular users, it jumps to 95%. Now, that's, a different use case. That is not putting AI as your boss in that scenario. It's trusting it to deliver quality work alongside you if you're managing it like an intern. But I wonder if as more time goes on and we see more good use cases of AI supporting the process when it comes to our salary increases or our performance reviews, like if we truly will start to trust AI more with those things, with positive experiences backing it. What this all reminds me of, though, Gil, is a lot of the data I've been reporting on this podcast actually over the last few months around students and their trust of AI in admission and financial aid decisions. And I do think there is a parallel here that, you can elevate this to saying like humans trust AI with questions, but not their futures.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think part of it too is there's the exposure element. And I'm glad that you brought up the student side of things because we can pull in the higher ed lens here. There's the exposure piece, but then there's also if it's not even apparent, it's just playing in the background element of things, right? And great example you mentioned with scholarship awarding, right? If we have a hard line that's driven by AI that blocks out students that are on the fringes for consideration for scholarships. That's an access issue. That's an equity issue. That creates a problem. However, if AI is used in the context of uncovering more students who qualify for specific scholarships who might not have known about it, and now we can present them with more opportunities, that's a win for AI, right? And I think
absolutely.
I think what we need to do is really, and there's companies out there that are already thinking about this and already doing this, right? And so I think it's about leveraging those kind of first movers and those that are investing. The challenge in the lens specifically of higher ed is you always have to rely on some partners for some of these things, because you're not going to build these tools and models yourself. You don't have the time, resources, or money to do it, right? But I think trust comes with positive outcomes, not negative ones. And again, it goes back to the element of, like you said, comes with exposure, also comes with learning and growing, right? None of this stuff is perfect right now. I still laugh every time people complain about, oh, ChatGPT said this wrong answer to something that I put out there, but it's like, what was your prompt?
Yeah.
How was it structured? What instructions did you give
Context.
Yeah. If you have the same feedback, if you hired a junior level admissions counselor and they messed something up, but you didn't train them, you didn't give them the right expectations, you didn't give them the right information, you wouldn't fire them that day, or at least you shouldn't. You would take that opportunity to encourage growth, right? And we always have a higher expectation on the new thing than the thing we've had for 30 years, right? And it's an unfair comparison at that point, because you've got to give these things time to bear fruit.
Here's a quick word from our sponsor. Southeast Missouri State University needed to launch more targeted campaigns faster, yet they were bogged down by manual campaign builds, slow approvals, and vendor overload. With Element 451, they eliminated 5 vendor tools and gained marketing superpowers in one platform. They saw a 13% increase in applications, processed applications within 2 days, and achieved 33 to 35% email open rates. The impact: personalized, automated campaigns running at scale without the drag. Ready to turn your next campaign around in hours, not weeks? Try an agent today at element451.com/agents. So I think this first article establishes that trust is fragile in at least certain use cases of AI application. Now, as we start talking about the second article, right, the problem only deepens when leaders don't even know how much AI is being used under their own roof. And the second article exposes that nearly half of U.S. employees are using AI secretly at work. 2/3 are paying for the tools themselves. And on a previous Pulse episode, Carrie Pitts-Densmore and I discussed how women are disproportionately viewed as less competent against men when, the workforce is kind of secretly using AI and there isn't a structure in place to train or encourage. So, this shadow workforce is being created, and it's not just a policy problem. Like, this signals a fundamental shift in how work is getting done faster, cheaper, without waiting for approval. And higher ed's not immune. Like, everybody is experimenting, whether or not they're telling their leadership. So again, this comes back to being a failure on leadership, not technology. Gil, I know that, you are consulting with a number of companies. What have you seen on the ground in terms of building cultures of AI experimentation, and actually putting some guardrails in place?
Yeah. I always like to start with why, right? If I'm the marketing guy, I'm starting with why. Why are people seeking out these AI tools, right? Like, looking from let's go back to the early days of all this stuff. Students using AI to cheat. Like, they're not using AI to cheat for the most part. There's always fringes. There's always exceptions. There is some sort of an unmet need in their workflow that is requiring them to seek out a tool to help them do their job better, be more efficient, whatever it is, be more effective. And it's through the lens of admissions and enrollment management, it's lack of time, lack of people, right? And so And the great thing is that's what all these companies that are creating all these tools are promising, right? Like, we're going to help you be more efficient. We're going to help you save time. We're going to help you be more effective with engaging with students, right? And so they're gravitating toward the promise of the solutions of the problems they have. And the leadership gap and issue is doubling down on what was instead of embracing what is. And I think that's always the challenge. This is not new. We could have recorded this podcast 10 years ago on whatever was new 10 years ago. Social media 15 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago. Ugh, that number actually is bigger than that, right? That's why I'm fully gray.
That's why
right?
you have no hair on your head left. That's not white. Yeah. Okay.
The first time, like, we have literally been having this same conversation every 3 to 5 years about the new thing, right? And so the bans don't work, right? Blocking social media pages didn't stop your institution's new admissions counselors from creating a Facebook page for your school. What you should have done is incentivized that and encouraged that, right? If I'm a VP of enrollment at an institution, I want people to try things and fail forward and learn things, because at the end of the day, if that helps us get half hour of our time back, an hour of our time back on a weekly basis, that compounds into hours and hours of time saved. And that's a mental health solution. It is a better engagement with students and better delivery of outcome solution, right? And so I think giving your team space to try things and fail is something that we're under the pressures of hitting our goals every single year. Nobody gets fired for buying more search names. They get fired for missing their goals, right? And then they're going to associate trying new stuff with why they missed their goals, when there's all these other elements out there that are causing these problems. I think at the end of the day, leadership needs to embrace that change and lead that change. But a lot of times that change is coming from below, and they need to listen to their staff. I think, and working with a ton of tech providers in the space, the good news is because these enrollment leaders have so much of this growth through committee or purchase through committee mindset, they want to get their team involved in these decisions, because it insulates them from it just being their call. But 2, it makes sure that the end users of these solutions will actually see value in them, right? So I think we're on that path. It's just higher ed is glacially slow, and it takes forever for any of these things to really change. But like I said, bans don't work, right? Guardrails around these things, and don't allow your staff to completely outsource their job to ChatGPT, right? But have honest conversations about what appropriate use and what inappropriate use is, just like every other communication medium.
So then, are we surprised that MIT's study found that 95% of AI projects fail to deliver? It very much feels like the story that's being created is there's this bottom-up shadow workforce being created, and our leaders are not putting the right policies or processes in place to actually implement the tools. And it's not that the tools don't work, right? For the most part, this truly becomes a leadership challenge if you cannot align your employees, train them appropriately, integrate the tools actually into the tech stack instead of just slapping them in there. Why, Gil, do you think leaders are so quick to spend the money on these flashy, pilot projects and this new AI shiny object without going back to the goals, without going back to the fundamentals? Oh, this makes me think of my conversation with Carol Keese just a couple weeks ago, where she was preaching, put the fundamentals in place first. But Gil, why is that not happening?
Just so I understand the question correctly, let's think about this. We have leadership people throwing a lot of money at a problem and having unrealistic expectations of the outcomes. That's about
that is the shorter version of the question. Yeah. Yep. Nailed it.
So that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
It's a strategy, planning, and expectations issue. Like I said at the beginning, right? You hire in the real world, i.e. the not technology world, right? Which is also the real world, but you get it. In the real world, you hire a new person for a job. You train and onboard that person. You give them the information that they need to do their job. And then ideally, you empower them to do their job, right? However, when you're dealing with a junior level person straight out of school, you're going to give them a little bit different level of training and oversight than someone who is a seasoned veteran who's been in the field for 20 years and is coming in because you understand their value and you want them to lead, right? And so the first year person straight out of school needs a little bit of extra training, needs a little bit of extra oversight, needs to be supervised a little bit more. Don't micromanage people. I don't love micromanaging, but they need to learn stuff, right? And they're going to, if you don't impart wisdom to them and give them the tools and the processes to be successful, they're going to stub their toe. They're going to mess up. And then they're going to be seen as and then if you don't take any corrective actions, they're going to fail and they're going to be unsavable at that point. And so I'm not surprised it's 95%. I'm actually surprised it's that low, right? I think we have a certain issue of misalignment of training, expectations, and desire for better outcomes, right? And I think that Venn diagram of all those things, AI is at the center of it right now. And like if the promise is it's going to save you so much time, going to save you so much money, but I don't spend the time. It's just like every other system and every other process. If I don't do the work to integrate these things into my process, it's not going to support the outcomes the way that it should. 20 years ago, we started doing probably more, again, gray hair. We started doing things with predictive models, right? And and identifying best fit students based on their model score. If you didn't create any type of a modified communication flow based on their model score, you're going to get crappy results from your outcomes, right? If you never update your communication plan, you're going to end up seeing crappy results. If you're not leveraging and training and updating the technology, you're going to get crappy results, right? And so I think that's the issue. It's the leadership gap and the misalignment of expectations and outcomes. And so we scrambled to throw money at the problem, and we're getting what we pay for.
So are we then surprised that when these pilots start failing, the leaders need to prove they're serious, right? And then they start to scramble. And then all of a sudden, well, let's create a chief AI officer position and, just pass the monkey over to that person. Now, for some context, the article that I've dropped into the show notes does focus on the fashion industry. Interestingly enough, Lululemon, Ralph Lauren, and Estee Lauder have all appointed chief AI officers. But for context, that job is to set an AI vision, oversee governance and risk, decide what tools to deploy, upskill teams, et cetera, all the things that don't exist that have led to that 95% failure rate. So in short, the creation of the role is about ownership and accountability. And I wonder, Gil, if you see, value in that type of role within higher ed, because I often do wonder who is owning AI innovation within an institution. And I get such a mixed bag of answers when I ask on-campus leadership that question.
Yeah, I mean, I at a high level, I do support some level of visionary oversight, right? Then it's about where it sits and who is responsible. And to bring it into the institution side in a place that a lot of people who are listening to this podcast probably understand, this feels similar to the gap and the chasm that's oftentimes between admissions and marketing at a college, right? If they bubble up to the same VP, they work collaboratively together, great. But many times admissions is doing its own marketing related things, and marketing is more brand and community engagement and those sorts of things, right? And so where does this owner sit and what are they actually focused on, right? If it's just an IT role where they're just like, we're going to be focused on, the data security and all those sorts of things, that's different than a broader lens where it's over the entire institution, right? And having some level of accountability. And so I think establishing governance is important. And I think there's a lot of conversations that have been being had about that. And we just need to take it seriously and have it not be, don't do it, hide it, and don't let people use it. It's got to be more of a process innovation than anything else.
Yeah, I definitely think this is cabinet level. And
yep.
Top down, we've seen great examples. I often point to President Janet Spriggs at Forsyth Tech Community College, who I think is one of our industry's shining examples for top-down leadership with building a culture of experimentation and integration for artificial intelligence on a campus. So I think, there's a lot of risk if AI strategy for the institution sits too low in the organization chart, but higher ed cabinets are already pretty crowded, Gil. So, I do wonder what structure makes the most
But
sense.
AI will make it more efficient. They can eliminate heads with the AI.
Oh,
right?
yeah, sure. I'm sure everybody listening loves to hear that.
No, but it's not going to happen, right? It's not replacing the strategy, right? It's not replacing the human element. Going back to the first article, right? Like there's still a trust and a management oversight component here. What would the question is, to push back on that point a little bit, is would you rather have this is just like your social media presence? Is it the expectation that an entry-level admissions counselor is the person managing your institution's brand on social, or is it a higher level role than that where it's more aligned with the broader strategy? Do you want your smart and fun recent grad who understands technology being the one helping to drive and deploy the use of AI across departments? Or is it someone who has a better understanding of the organizational structure, the politics, right? The faculty engagement element, right? There's a lot that goes in and it's beyond just single department kind of a space.
Well, as we wrap this one up, I think there's a very obvious pattern here. Workers are resisting. There's shadow adoption happening. Failed projects are a reality, and leadership is scrambling for structure. I have to say, AI is not failing us because the tools aren't working. It's failing us because we aren't ready for it. And we have to step back, as you said, and treat this like any other technology, any other, thing that we have had to integrate into our workflows. And integration, trust, structure, and governance, these are the tests AI is running, and we are starting to see some cracks. So if you want to read those articles, head down to the show notes. Also in the show notes, very exciting, the AI Engage Summit is back. It is virtual. It is free. It is happening October 15th and 16th. We will drop a link in the show notes where you can learn more and register. Having run the event, having participated in the event in the past, I can say from personal experience that it is always an excellent lineup of just the most important things for our industry around AI when it happens. Check out the agenda. It looks fantastic. Gil, any parting thoughts on this topic before we wrap this one up?
I think my final word on all of this, to echo your sentiment, right? We're still in the early phases of all of these things relative to everything else we've ever been doing, right? And you don't bag something after one failed attempt, right? You iterate and you grow. That's the way this is going to work. And specifically through the lens of higher education, right? All of these studies, all of these reports, I feel like the rest of the world is going to continue to keep trying things and keep working on things. And if higher ed puts its head in the sand and decides, nope, AI isn't for us, that's going to be that's not the solution that we would encourage, right? I think that there's opportunity for learning, for growth, and for improvement. And this is a great time to start having those types of conversations.
Amazing. All right, folks, we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Pulse. The show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow, so be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.